Hello book besties and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my top romance recommendations of all time. I have a very large stack of books. This is not all of them. I have 17 total. So if you love like romantic comedies, regular romance, fantasy romance, and a lot of romance that has like low spice, because a lot of these are not spicy at all, then keep watching. So first up, one of my all-time favorites is Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. I love this book. Let me tell you a little bit about it. So Elizabeth was orphaned as a child and she was taken in by one of the great libraries. Now the great libraries house like these magical books called grimoires. They don't talk or anything, but they just have like magical spells and that kind of stuff inside of them. But then someone or something starts to sabotage all of the libraries. So all of like the really important grimoires, they're like released, and that's not good because they're supposed to be like kind of held and secured in like a safe place. Elizabeth is the one that is accused of treason. So Elizabeth is forced to flee the only home that she's ever known, and the only person that's able to help her is her sworn enemy Nathaniel Thorne. I love Nathaniel Thorne. His nickname for her is Menace, and that's attractive. I love that so much. So if you're somebody who loves fantasy but also loves like to have like a really strong like romance subplot, this book is for you. Next up, we've got The Loves of My Life, the Summer I Turned Pretty series. I devoured this month. And by devoured, I mean I read this book, the first book, twice just this month, and it's my third time reading it like all together. So The Summer I Turned Pretty follows Belly, which is the main character, and she has gone to Cousins Beach every single summer for like her entire life. Her mother's best friend, Susanna, is the one who owns the beach house in Cousins Beach. And Susanna has two sons, Jeremiah and Conrad. Belly has been in love with Conrad ever since she can remember, and she hopes that this summer, the summer that she turned pretty, is the summer that like they finally fall in love. He finally shows his feelings towards her, and everything is just fine and dandy. I don't want to give too much away. I don't want to spoil it for people that have never read it before, but the entire series basically follows Belly, Conrad, and Jeremiah, and you know, the loss of a loved one as well. So it takes a lot of like super intense topics as well and touches on them in a really nice, youthful, coming of age way. It's super relatable, and it's just it's just a really good story. Next up, we've got The Selection by Kiera Cass. Maxon, I'm obsessed with Maxon. So The Selection, think like The Bachelor in the best way. I consider it like fantasy romance because it's very like princessy, like princey, very like royal. So it follows the story of America Singer, who is in one of the lower caste systems, but she was picked to be in the prince's selection, where a bunch of girls from a bunch of different caste systems go into the royal palace and basically fight for Maxon's affections. America Singer goes into this competition like not wanting to be a part of it whatsoever. And then she meets Prince Maxon, and the rest is history. I still have to read The Elite and the other two books that are in this trilogy, but I'm very excited because I really enjoyed this one, and I always find myself recommending it to people. Next up, we've got The Honeymooners by Christina Lauren. This book has such a special place in my heart. I feel like this is the book that got me back into reading. I stopped reading for a little bit in high school, and during my senior year, I really started picking up books again and reading a lot more. And this was the book that kind of started it all. So the female main character, Olive Torres, is a twin, and she is like, how do I say this? Like the unlucky twin. Nothing works out for her, that kind of thing. And her twin sister, Amy, is getting married. Amy has like the best luck in the world. But at Amy's wedding, everybody gets food poisoning, including Amy. The only two people who do not get food poisoning is Olive and her nemesis, Ethan. But there is also a honeymoon trip that is non-refundable. So guess who ends up going? Ethan and Olive. So they end up going to Maui together. So they play the parts of newlyweds, and then Olive starts to realize that she doesn't really hate it all that much. Like she kind of is starting to like Ethan. So this was just a really sweet, really quick rom-com, and it was like laugh out loud funny. Like I was actually laughing as I was reading this book. Yeah, this one is super cute, and it's perfect for summer too. Like it's just very light. So yeah, this is one of my all-time favorites. Then we've got another Christina Lauren book, which is Love in Other Words. This follows the story of Macy and Elliot. It is a friends to lovers. So they were childhood friends and they grew up together, and they fell in love. And then on the same night that Elliot declares his love for Macy, he also breaks her heart. There was a lot of miscommunication, I will say that. Like, there was a lot of stuff that wasn't communicated, but the true love that Elliot and Macy have for one another is just so beautiful. It just feels like they are meant for each other. That in any universe, they would be together. And then we've got A Chauffeur 2 by Tashi Bouillon. I am not sure if that is how you pronounce it. That is how you spell it. But this is another one that I just fell in love with this. So this is a young adult rom-com, and it is about a aspiring screenwriter with an actor. So this book was actually inspired by a true story. So at the author's high school, Tom Holland, in preparation for his role in Spider-Man, went to her high school to kind of like observe the people that were there and kind of really get into the part. And she wrote a book about it. So Mina Rahman is the female main character, and she is the aspiring screenwriter. All she has wanted to do was win the Golden Ivy student film contest. So when indie film star Emmett Ramos goes to her high school undercover, she convinces him to be in her film to hopefully win the Golden Ivy student film competition. But he will only agree to be in her short film if she agrees to be his New York City tour guide. So they're going around New York City. She's showing him all around. She's showing him like the wonderful places that are in New York. And she kind of rekindles her love for New York City because all her life she had wanted to leave. Like, she couldn't wait to get into her dream university so that she could leave. And she kind of just rekindled all of her love for New York City. It's just sweet. Like, I would describe this as like a really sweet romance. Next up is Again But Better by Christina Riccio. Again, I don't know if that's how you pronounce that name, but this is how it is spelled. This one, I would say that it's like more of like a romantic subplot, because I feel like the main story is her kind of finding herself. So Shane is the female main character, and she is like straight A's, pre-med, like she's just on a straight line, just dedicating her entire life to her future. So she ends up going to study abroad for a semester in London. And it's kind of split into two stories. Like, when you start reading the first part and she is in London and she's meeting all of her roommates and she's meeting the boy that she ends up falling in love with. Like, the first part of the story is just so beautiful. And then you get to the second part, which I don't want to spoil anything because that's like the best part. But yeah, and then she's kind of given a second chance to do all of the things that she wished that she had done. This book is all about like second chances and finding true love, you know, like going and trying to right all of the wrongs. I read this last year, and it was the first book that I read in 2022, and it was just very memorable. Like, I still think about it all the time. This one is one of those books that I wish that I could read again for the first time and like not know what was happening, because reading it for the first time was just perfect. It was magical. Then we've got Last Chance Books by Kelsey Rodkey. This was one of my books of the year, and let me tell you why. So this follows the story of Madeline and Jasper. Madeline works at her family's bookstore, which is called Books and More, and then a chain store moves in across the street, which is where Jasper works. And they're kind of taking all of Books and More's business. So, as any sane person would do, Madeline starts sabotaging their store, and they kind of get into a little prank war. This was so fun. And can we just talk about the cover for a second? Like, that is so adorable. So yeah, this is like a really, really cute, light enemies to lovers. It's just so adorable and cute. Then we've got Check and Mate by Ali Hazelwood. This is Ali Hazelwood's YA debut, and it is perfect. It's a little slow to start. We don't get as much of like the romance until about page 100, I think. But once you get to the romance, it is so worth it. So this is about Mallory Greenleaf, who used to play chess like a lot. She used to be very good at it. And then she kind of had some sort of trauma related to chess. So then she decided that she was done with it. She's not going to do it. It was kind of ruining her life. And then she ends up playing in a charity event against one of the best chess players in the world, Nolan Sawyer. Nolan Sawyer, who is so cute, and he's so sweet. And Nolan Sawyer never loses. Well, guess what? He lost to Mallory Greenleaf. So after that, she's like, I'm done. Like, I don't want to play anymore. Like, I don't want to do this. And she ends up getting picked up by kind of like a chess agency, and ends up playing against him because he like wants to study her moves. Like, he wants to see how she beat him. Like, he just wants to see her. And as they're doing that, and as they're, you know, getting to know each other, playing against each other, love happens, and it's so cute and it's so sweet. And it's one of my books of the year. We all knew that this book was going to be in here, and it is Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. This book is so perfect, and any book lover, movie lover, somebody who loves to make playlists for everything, this is your book. Like, this is for you. So this is about Liz Buxbaum and her enemy, Wes Bennett. I love Wes Bennett. And they're always feuding, and she's like, I could never like Wes, not ever. And her forever crush from when she was younger, Michael, ends up coming back to her school. But Michael's best friend is Wes. So the entire book, Wes is trying to set up Liz with Michael because like they're so close. But as he's setting up Liz with Michael, they end up getting closer, and like you could see where this is going. This is probably one of my favorite books of all time. It's so perfect, and it's just easy to read. There's nothing difficult about reading it, and it's just really cute. We've got another Kelsey Roddenke book, and it is Plus One. So Lahaye Johnson, I think that's how you pronounce Lahaye, but Lahaye Johnson is basically like a matchmaker. She is able to find everybody else love. She sets people up on dates, and she's just really good at finding love for others, but not as good at finding love for herself. So one of Lahaye's enemies is her cousin Summer, and Summer is kind of always trying to be better than Lahaye. She's just trying to like show her up. Lahaye has just always wanted to be just as good as Summer was. So Summer's Sweet 16 is coming up, and she invited Lahaye, but she didn't give her a plus one. So Lahaye is determined to show Summer that she can find a plus one. So she sets up all of these dates for herself. And this entire time, her sister's best friend, which is Adler, and he's watching her like go on these dates and witnessing like how they go bad or if they go good, and just kind of like always being there. And she doesn't like him. She finds him very annoying. So yeah, this entire book is just her trying to love herself, you know, trying to love herself in her own skin and not comparing herself to others, while also finding love that she didn't really think would happen. Then the love of my life, 1,000 Heartbeats by Kiera Cass. It's very princessy, it's very royal. It's a very short enemies to lovers. It's like forbidden love. Think like Romeo and Juliet, like feuding lands. So Princess Annika is being forced to marry a man that she doesn't love, doesn't have feelings for, just for political gain, for her father. Like her father is making her marry. And Lennox has devoted his life to taking back the land that was stolen from him, which happens to be the land that Princess Annika's family owns. I don't know if you guys could tell, but I am a very big Taylor Swift fan, and this book just screams Speak Now by Taylor Swift. Like, I will never stop talking about this book. I don't think I'm gonna be able to stop talking about this book. It's just so perfect and so beautiful. Then we've got Everything Everything by Nicola Yoon. I have read this book like over a dozen times. This tells the story of Madeline Whittier, who has baby bubble disease, which basically means she's allergic to life. Then all of a sudden a neighbor moves in, which is Ollie, and he kind of makes her want to risk her life. Like, he makes her want to risk everything that she's ever known, like just to know more things about him and be near him and do all of that. This is just one of my all-time favorite comfort reads, and it's just one of those stories that, like, no matter how many times I read it, I just come back and I enjoy it even more, if that's possible. Then we've got Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I feel like this book just took over Book Talk, and it just became so popular for a good reason, because it is absolutely incredible. It is such a good story. And it has chronic illness representation. So in here, the main character, Violet Sarengale, has Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a connective tissue disorder that kind of causes a lot of pain, and it makes it hard to be mobile. Like, your joints are very loose. I have this condition, so reading this book, it was very special to me because I felt like it was just so unique to see something that I had been dealing with for so long represented in a fantasy book of like a dragon rider. The different representation that's shown in here, and just like, you know, adjusting to different disability needs, you know, like it was just so cool to see. So Violet Sarengale ends up being one of the dragon riders, so she's in that quadrant, and her leader is Zayden Riorson. He's so hot.
He's so hot.
Who is also her enemy and who also hates her mother because of like the different kind of political stuff that's going on in the book. It gave me very strong Divergent vibes. It was like that kind of, you know, enemies to lovers. I don't want to fall in love with that person, but I'm gonna fall in love with that person. So any hype that you're seeing about this book is so well deserved. And last but definitely not least is Happy Place by Emily Henry. This book was very sad. This was probably, out of the entire stack that I showed you, this is probably the saddest book out of them all. So Harriet and Wynne were basically like the perfect couple. And then all of a sudden they kind of broke up for reasons that they don't really share right away. But the entire friend group every single year goes away to Maine to kind of just like get away and vacation a little bit. And they didn't tell their friends that they broke up. So the entire time they're like kind of pretending that they're still together even though they're not. This was the first Emily Henry book that I had ever read. I started Book Lovers, but I didn't take to it as much, but I really took to this one. I feel like she's very good at writing emotions. She's very good at portraying that through her characters. So if you love romance that kind of pulls on your heartstrings a little bit, I suggest you read Happy Place by Emily Henry. I feel like Emily Henry really wrote a perfect book with this one. So 17 books later and we are done. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more videos like this, leave a comment down below. And as always, if you want to connect with me on my other social media, you can follow me on TikTok at heartfelthan, and you can follow me on Instagram at the Heartfelt Library. Again, thank you so much for watching. I'm having so much fun filming these kind of videos, and I will see you next Sunday. Bye!